Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
Happy Friday, Phil. Good to be with you and everybody out there in the listening world.
Same to you, Mike, and let's get started right away. Let's dig right in, Mike. Let's go right to the tariffs.
Hey, Phil, it's been a week.
I don't know what angle to come at it with because there's so many angles. I could go with I told you so's. I could go with about the China being it looks like we may possibly, it's in the realm of possibilities, be going to war with them at some point.
Certainly economic.
Well, what would you do if you're an opposing country and pretty much that country's whole debt is to you and they decide not to pay? Would you go to war?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. The China thing is super interesting because this week you saw the tariffs come in, go out, go back and forth. I mean, you could sit here, you could be in front of your computer getting whiplash. But I think at the end of the day, what you're seeing is, in my opinion, what should have happened in the beginning is that it's really targeted and directed at China because that's the only real meat and potatoes, if you will, of what the plan is focused at. And you can already see some movement from various companies, Apple being one of them that announced, they're looking to move some of their production from China to, Vietnam or to India or wherever else.
$500 million.
There's some pressure on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, and by the way, that's what I think should have happened in the first place, because I think what we've now created is a stock market disaster going on back and forth. I don't know. I haven't looked in the last hour or so, but I know it was back down today again after it was record setting yesterday, up like 3,000 points. It's all over the place. You're getting whiplash every which direction because by and large, none of this is good for consumer confidence, right? Like this is scaring the living shit out of your average person who, by the way, doesn't really know anything about the stock market. Let's be fair right now. Most Americans don't understand how the stock market works. They don't understand the connectivity between the strength of the dollar, the stock market, international trade, tariffs. Nobody understands any of it really. And by the way, if you watch Trump right now, I'm not sure even an economist could tell you what the hell is happening. So it's been nutty. But to get back to the China thing, let's just strip away all the bullshit that's happened. What we're really trying to do is weaken China,
yes,
and take back some of the, whether we take it back to the United States or we take it to other countries in the world, we're trying to take some of the manufacturing power away from China. My opinion is we're going to win that, and China is weak. China has a lot of internal problems. It has a lot of economic problems. It has an aging population where they don't have the workforce. Give it another 10 years, they just simply won't have the people to run the factories. They've got a lot of internal stuff. And remember, it's a communist country. So the president of China right now is caught between a rock and a hard place. What he should do is start dialogue with Trump, because we all have seen the EU do it, Canada do it, Mexico do it, other countries around the world. That works, right? There's dialogue. That's largely worked. China is sitting firm and trying to economically fight us. They're going to lose that, because let's be honest, Phil, China could put 5,000% tariffs on us. It doesn't really matter that much. We don't sell a whole lot of shit to China in the first place. So it's working the other direction. If we're putting tariffs on them, you know, it's only going to take so long. I read somewhere that they've got maybe a 3-week maximum survivability. If we were to really, I heard Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank talking about this on CNBC or somewhere. He's like,
he's loving this.
Yeah, he's loving it. He's like, let's put 400% tariffs on them, and at the end of the day, you're basically gonna shake them into reality, and either they come to the table, or what's going to happen is you're going to see some of their factories and people pull out and start shutting down. If those people that are already getting paid, $4 a week, start losing jobs, the Communist Party weakens. It causes a political and an economic problem in China. So that country, similarly to what you saw with Russia when they went to war with Ukraine, and we find out that we are looking at Russia as a superpower. Really, they're barely a third world country. Their trucks don't work. They're really not nearly as strong as everybody made them out to be. I think you're going to find out the same about China. I don't think it's a very strong country at all. So, I mean, fighting China, we win hands down.
I don't think they have a choice, Mike. I think they have to stand up to us, because the alternative, if they sat and had talks and ended up compromising significantly with us, or just giving us a fair deal, that doesn't just impact China, U.S., our relationship. It also affects the way our allies and their allies and countries that we've colonized and that they've colonized. There may be a revolt of some of the African countries that they've bought and stuff like that. You start losing. Once you see Mike Tyson get knocked down, you're not scared of him anymore. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you're right, Phil, because they're involved in Africa, they're involved in Central America, South America, in various places around the world. Like I said, they're in a rock and a hard place. They're going to lose if, and I'll tell you what China is counting on. China is counting on the Donald Trump opposition to take their side.
But in just a matter of a couple of days, Mike, yeah, his political rivals here in America have tried to remain negative, but everybody's coming to the table and joining with Trump. So That's not working.
It's not working. No, and that's what I'm trying to say is I think that he is in a very difficult situation in China. I mean, the answer is probably somewhere, I don't want to say this out loud, but for China, I mean, he's going to have to come to the negotiating table at some point, and in their, what China usually does, and what Mr. Wonderful was saying, is that they lie, cheat, and steal, right? So they're going to make some kind of an agreement, and they've never held true to any of the agreements they've really made. They steal intellectual property constantly. There's not that they're the only country that does that, but China is masters at this.
I was about to say, nobody's on the level they are, Mike. Wow.
No, that's right.
I know a bunch of little small vendors, some that are now, they went out and bought 3D printers, but prior to, they were getting their work done in in China. Yep. Like, I know somebody who makes a battery tester that you can attach to your multi-tool.
Yep.
He was originally getting it made by them. Then he finally got it made here in America. Now they're selling it for like 1/3 the price on Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's an interesting scenario, and I don't, as an American, I don't know, I'm trying to stay out of politics here, but like, in my opinion, whether you're on Trump's side or against Trump, or a Democrat or a Republican, it is in your best interest to be against China. And I think over the course of the last 15 years, I think you you'd hear that from both sides, including the Chuck Schumers and the Nancy Pelosi's of the world. I mean, nobody. I don't think behind closed doors. I don't think anybody's a fan of China. So, for Americans to start, because I have heard some of this week. We talk about this a lot on the podcast, where people start. You get the Facebook memes rolling. For anybody to start taking sort of the anti-Trump and by definition the Chinese side, you don't understand what's going on. So I mean, that's not where you want to be.
I saw a little soundbite on CNN where the Democratic lady on the show was talking about how this was stupid what we were doing with the tariffs and everything. And then the Republican guy, I can't think of his name. He's like the best guy on CNN. But anyway, he was mentioning, he was like, so are you siding with China saying we should continue to depend on China and take these bad deals? And she basically said yes.
Yeah. See, I mean, that part I don't really understand. I mean, shame on her. We should have learned this lesson during the COVID years, right? I mean, we found out during the pandemic that our reliance on some of these other countries puts us at a huge risk.
Yes.
China being the top one for sure. And, ironically, I mean, the whole damn debacle came out of China in the first place. So it's an interesting correlation there, but I'm not going to back anybody that's going to take the side of China in this case. Look, I suggested a long time ago. I mean, we talk about, and you and I have talked about this on the podcast, the national debt and all that, which is for most people that understand real math, it's kind of irrelevant, right? Who gives a shit? I mean, it's made up. I love people that are obsessed, super obsessed with that. And it really is not, if you understand the economics of it, other than the borrowing of it, which, by the way, largely we're borrowing from China to buy Chinese shit. I mean, this is the problem.
Right.
This is what's happening, right? But if we were to, you said this at the top of the show, if we suddenly said, and I would support Trump if he did this, and said, look, all property that Chinese nationals own in the United States and or China, the government, and or any debt that we have to them, we're canceling. I'm in support of that. Boy, you'd get rid of the national debt in a heartbeat.
I think that's where we're headed, bro. I really do.
I agree. I think that's what
I'm with it.
About.
I got a sense that he wanted to do that in his first term.
He did, and we were actually, for the first time in probably 25 years, we were on the road towards more independence and more production going on in the United States and less dependent upon some of these, I'll call them bad players. That's kind of what they are. And then, of course, we had 4 years of Biden, who, I mean, not that he made it, not that he took away any of that. He just didn't do anything. I mean, shit. Have you been reading the news stories this week on a couple of the books that have been written and about the end of the Biden administration and some of the people behind the scenes and Obama and Pelosi and all this stuff? I mean,
I am so shocked at what's in the books that I'm more shocked that there wasn't all kind of litigation by different people trying to stop these books from coming out, because this reminds me of something like that I would have seen on HBO as a parody comedy, like with about Washington D.C. Not actually happened.
That's right.
This is like that whatever to Bernie's movie where the guys did.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
But but here's the thing is like many of us called that from the beginning, right? I mean, and said that that's what was going on. It was kind of obvious. So hindsight, look, when it comes, history has a way of showing you what really happens, right?
Yes.
So you can only keep a secret for so long. Eventually it comes out. The interesting part of our culture is that we don't learn from history. We just simply don't. And the people that were sitting so adamantly and jumping up and down saying, Biden is in his right mind. He knows what's going on. He's as sharp as ever. Where are they now? Do you think that they're going to come out and say, yeah, we were wrong? Hell fucking no. No, they're not going to say that. But let's just cut to the chase. It's the way it was,
AP News has always been like a standard for me as far as getting news. I may research other places, but I usually start at AP News because that's generally been an honest, non-biased news organization. But
well, that's great as long as you don't want news from the White House.
Well, but I have a question about that. Yeah, they got kicked out the White House. Yeah, and they're back and everything. So it does show that they are going against the grain. But have you not noticed, I'd say in the last 2 months, Mike, that they're sticking to the facts still, but their wording has changed. They seem to be liberally sentimental in their writing.
The media is a challenging thing, and we've talked about this as well in the past. It's always been this way. This is not anything new.
I get it, but is AP News still a non-biased news source that we can depend on?
I don't think so. I mean, in my opinion, I think that all news sources have to be taken with a grain of salt. It's like, so I'll give you an example. You can't really believe anything that you hear if you listen to only one source. I mean, this is just true. So yesterday I hear this, there was a lot of discussion about Rachel Maddow did an expose kind of on what's the economic guy that Trump's got working for me, the crazy, he's not in an official role, right? He's the advisor, Peter Navarro.
Mm-hmm.
And she did a thing on him where she had this whole story about how Peter Navarro had written these books and was using this fantasy guy as a quote, which was basically his name spelled in a different way. It's an anagram of it or whatever. And she made it sound like that's what he was quoting today. Now, when I did some research on that, even if you go to Snopes, it debunks that whole story, but that's a very popular story going around on the left right now, that Donald Trump is being run by Peter Navarro and this fantasy economic guy who doesn't exist. And although some of that was true, this is not in 2025. So they're leading you to believe that that's what's happening today. So you can't, and we're talking about Rachel Maddow. She's like one of, I get it, she's biased, but she's one of the top people on television. So you got to take, you got to listen to her, and then you got to go and listen to O'Reilly on X, and then you got to go listen to, a guy on Fox, and then you got to listen to, I'll be honest with you, I get most of my news from the BBC, because I try to get it non-American based. I look at Al Jazeera as well. I try to get it non-American based. They still have a bias, don't get me wrong, but at least their bias is not so blatantly either Democrat or Republican.
I have to take my personal knowledge of the world, combine it with all of the different news organizations, and figure out what the truth is.
I know. Yeah, you got to fact check everything. Everything.
Mike, the National Weather Service no longer is translating products for non-English speakers after a Trump executive order. So what do you think about that?
Well, so here's the issue. I mean, by the way, this all stems from Trump making English the official language of the United States. Now, in my opinion, that should have happened a long time ago. It's shocking to me that it wasn't, considering that
Should have been in the Declaration of Independence.
That's right. Exactly. And just so you know, the facts are almost every country in the world has an official language or multiple official languages. That's just a fact. So that stems from that. That's kind of where I'm going to diverge my opinion a little bit. The National Weather Service is an entity that has some role in, I would say, protection of people's lives based on, weather related events, right? So, I mean, I don't really see a fantastic reason to say, let's not broadcast anything in Spanish anymore, even though 80% of Miami speaks Spanish and there's a hurricane coming in and nobody knows what the hell you're saying now because you're giving it to them only in English. So that's difficult. Now, this is coming from somebody that's sitting down here in Mexico, and I deal with on a daily basis. I have to make it a priority to understand Spanish because that is the official language of Mexico. And if there's going to be a hurricane coming in here off the coast, guess what? My weather is in Spanish. So, I gotta get through that, right? But I'm not going to lie to you. There's plenty of quote English sources of information down here as well, and I can get apps on my phone that give me English and whatnot. So, I mean, that's not to belabor the point, but I get it from a budgetary. Where do you draw the line? Like is the National Weather Service supposed to put out the information in Vietnamese and Thai? I mean, and Russian, and where do you draw the line?
Well, this is the way I see it. So let's just go with the last thing you said. If you had made that statement maybe 5 years ago, I'd be all in with you on that because they literally had people who were bilingual in different languages transcribing in other languages information. So you had like a whole team of people. They use AI now. They type it once and then it goes into all the other languages. So right. I'm sure there's a cost for the software, but it's minimal.
It's minimal. My videos I put up on YouTube get translated into 20 languages. And like you said, it's AI.
So this is where I'm at on this. I'm rah America. I'm rah we should have English language as the one and only. But I look at the National Weather Service different. It's called the National Weather Service, but it is a global information center. It is a global information center. And
Phil, that's where the problem is.
And secondarily, it is an integral part of our emergency systems throughout America. One of the things is forget about immigrants. Forget about people illegally immigrating here for a minute. Any day of the year, we have millions of visitors to America from other places. Mm-hmm. And we should be able to provide emergency weather service information to as many languages as we can possibly think of.
Yeah.
It's just a safety thing. It don't have nothing to do with nationalism and none of that type stuff.
And that's the part I agree with you on. But let me touch on another point. So the National Weather Service, I think, was created for the benefit of the United States. What I can tell you from spending a lot of my life outside of the United States, particularly in the Caribbean and in Mexico and Central American areas, they all use the National Weather Service. So, when I was in St. Bart's, as an example, that's the reporting. That's how they monitor hurricanes and storms and whatnot. It's always with the National Weather Service. So it is an international organization. And I think this is where some of the problem has been created, where it's America, once again, is paying for a service that is being used by everybody. And I think that's the rub, right? That's what
that's life in the big city, being an
that's life
empire.
in the big city. Yep. You're
You
right.
know,
When there's a hurricane off the coast of
we have
Aruba, who's
we have.
flying the plane into the center of the hurricane? Aruba's not sending the plane up. America's sending the plane up, right?
I agree, but I want to be able to fly there safely.
Exactly. Exactly. And I agree with you. Nowadays, with language translation, I mean, really everything should be available in every language. There's really almost no excuse for it. If I want to put a statement out, I mean, I can just send a paragraph into AI and I could translate into 150 languages in less than 30 seconds. And admittedly, and I can tell you this from a lot of experience down here in Mexico. Some programs are better than others. Google Translate, as an example, I have come to find out is not very good. When I say not very good, and I mean pretty poor. If you really want to convey any kind of elaborate or difficult thought, I can tell you, because I use it here, unfortunately, back and forth for the Spanish that I do not know, and I would say 80% of the time, the Google Translate is wrong, meaning that it will give.
That much?
I mean, yeah, it's very high, Phil. And when I say wrong, I mean that it has some element. Let's say it's 3 sentences. Let's say it's this afternoon I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to stop and pick up my laundry, and I'm going to come back to my house, and we're going to eat dinner at 6. If I put that into translate into in Google and it translates into Spanish, I guess it's a good indicator that my Spanish is getting better, because I can usually read it and go, it's kind of at the 10-yard line. It's not getting it all the way done, because it'll say something like, I'm heading out to go to get groceries, and meanwhile I'm getting my laundry, and we plan to be enthusiastic about having dinner at 6. I mean, I mean, really. So you and I would both understand kind of what it's saying, but it definitely isn't right.
Right.
And I would say 80% of the time it has some kind of challenge like that.
Okay.
And I don't know. I'm not familiar with. I mean, that's the one we use on our phone most of the time. So I'm not really familiar with all of them. I mean, I'm going to assume, based on that, since Google is owned or owns YouTube, I'm going to assume that when YouTube translates my videos into other languages, that it's not doing a fantastic job either, because I imagine they're using the same program.
Mike, I want to read a quote to you by the Honorable Dr. Ian Malcolm.
Okay.
He wrote, "So busy with the fact that you can, that you never thought to stop and think about if you should." And that doctor is a character in the movie Jurassic Park. Where I'm headed with this is, you already know, it's been the biggest news everywhere. Scientists have genetically engineered wolves with white hair and muscular jaws, like the extinct dire wolf made famous by HBO's Game of Thrones. The 3 pups are Remus, Romulus, and Khaleesi. They were genetically engineered by a company named Colossal. And I'll just stop for there. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, to continue on talking about the media and the slant and the fact checking. So I did some fact checking on this. The company's out of Texas. They basically took a gray wolf, a genetic code from a gray wolf, which they claim is 99.5% or something similar or the same as a dire wolf. And then they made edits on the genome of, I don't know how many edits. I think they said 20 or somewhere
15.
around 15. Yeah. And they've produced 3 we'll call them genetically cloned dire wolves. Now, like in reality, I don't think that that's actually a true statement. I think they are modified gray wolves. Let's just be honest with what we're saying here. But it obviously brings up a lot of discussion because we're getting better at it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the first shot here is that we made a modified gray wolf that looks like a dire wolf. I'm assuming it's white. Well, I saw the puppies.
Oh, they're definitely white. They're beautiful.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Now, whether they're going to be, my understanding is that a gray wolf or a dire wolf is about 35 or 40% larger than a gray wolf. They're huge.
Yes.
So whether these end up being that big, I don't know. We'll find out.
So theoretically, these things are going to be the size of or larger than a mountain lion.
That's right. They're big, real big.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see if that happens. But we're getting better at this stuff. So now they were able to modify, like you said, 15 pieces of code information. Maybe a couple of years from now, they'll figure out that, well, we really needed to modify 40 code things or whatever, or we did this wrong, whatever. So is it a good thing? Yeah. I mean, to go back to what you said, because we can doesn't mean that we should. Because this same company, by the way, is talking about doing the woolly mammoth and what was the other one? There was another one.
The dodo bird.
Yeah, dodo bird. I've heard tossed around, and maybe the saber-tooth tiger.
No, that's the Tasmanians are doing that. It's that's a separate
company. But these guys were definitely talking about woolly mammoths. So basically, what they're going to do is genetically modify an elephant that has fur. I mean, I'm just telling you what's going to happen. Whether or not,
I agree.
Do I think it's a good idea? I don't know. I don't know. So where does it stop? I mean, in concept, you can come out with dire wolves and cool, put them in a zoo, maybe even put them back in the wild at some point. I don't know. Maybe that's bad or good. I don't really. What about when they genetically modify and bring back me and Phil? and we got 2 Waypoint Overland random Waypoint podcasts going on.
So let's you've already gone 30 years ahead. Let's stay right here for a second, Mike. We pretty much agree they haven't done what they said, but damn near have. They've definitely made scientific breakthroughs, and there is a future for this.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is, let me just run off a few things the things that stuck out to me, because the things that stuck out to me don't seem to have stuck out to anybody else. The wolves are stated to be on a fenced 2,000-acre preserve.
Yeah, I saw
which I'll get into later. I have an idea of where it is. They want to research and observe how they may have lived. And also the Dakota Native tribes, they're all wanting and negotiating with the Colossal on hosting wolves. So the first thing is, like you said, we agree they're in the beginning. This is the genesis of this, right? So they don't know what direction this is going. They say it's in this 2,000-acre preserve, but I've been to preserves all over the world, and every one of them has had escapes. And some of them have literally had armies around them.
Sure.
And have had escapes. So they can't guarantee me.
No.
And they may even have the ability to, if it escapes, capture it, let's say as quickly as 30 minutes. That wolf only needs 10 minutes to hook up with a wolf outside and inseminate it.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, whatever DNA that they find out is bad, that they don't want out there, it's already out there.
That's right.
And that's just one scenario. So I'm looking at, they've got these things, they say in a pen, but in my in my opinion, them being in a pen outdoors in a fence, they're in the wild.
Well, let's put this in perspective, Phil. We're treating it like, okay, so they're dire wolves. They're not that deadly, right?
They're very deadly if they
hold
actually
on.
turn out to be dire wolves.
But let me give you what I mean by that is we can relatively a rancher as a dire wolf coming at him, he could shoot him with a shotgun, whatever. What put it in perspective? Go back to how you started. What about if they create Tyrannosaurus Rex?
Bro, I'm trying to. You must not understand what they created. It's almost a Tyrannosaurus Rex they created. It's just a one that goes woof woof.
That's a big wolf. It's a big wolf.
Let me give you a quote. I can't find it, but they were basically saying that it would immediately become the apex predator in the world if it gets out into the
from a predator standpoint, yes, definitely. Yeah, agree. And which would impact, everything below it.
Everything.
Right? I mean, that's how it works for sure. Exactly. Well, I mean, that's what the movie Jurassic Park was about, right? You make dinosaurs that are deadly. You put them on an island. Of course, they're going to escape somehow, and they did. And but what I'm saying is like there's a difference between a wolf and a T-Rex that's 50 feet tall or whatever.
I agree with that. I'm not arguing.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm just using that as an exaggeration. I agree.
I'm just making a point. It's already too scary.
It is scary, and I'm not. But but even more scary would be if they decide to genetically clone. Okay, what's next? Are they going to attempt to bring back the Neanderthal man? What would be the implication of that? Maybe that's part of. Hey, maybe we could put him to work in the factories and bring all the production back from China by having Neanderthals work in factories.
Wow.
I mean, think about it.
So that brings me to something that I was going to go into. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, make dumb people.
I see them eventually editing the DNA for parents. And my question is, okay, is that person
that.
right? But I mean like how they're doing this. Mm-hmm. So would that person be actually considered a true human being, or would they have some other definition for them? Would they have the rights of a person that was born from two humans? Because just like you're talking about with the Neanderthals, that would probably be the legal age for being able to use them. Well, they're not really humans. They're something we made.
Right.
So it's a lot of issues.
Genetics is a slippery slope because, I mean, we started the podcast today talking about China and how they lie, cheat, and steal. I mean, there's labs all over China. Probably there was one that made COVID. I mean, let's be real. I mean, they're doing science projects, right? So, I mean, there's somewhere in the world right now somebody's trying to create a dumb human or a factory worker human that like could be beat on, not paid, whatever. I mean, come on, can you imagine this?
Every time I hear about in Africa some third world country where some large portion got burnt up, or a large group of people died, or some person had the first of some virus or something like that, I immediately think that there's some research company there doing exactly what we're talking about right now. I think that when we see something like dire wolves on actual TV and YouTube and everything, there's something 3 steps beyond that by some other research company that's doing it illegally.
Yeah.
Because they have to follow a handful of rules.
Agreed.
And a lot of times that's the big deal. It's like, we want to try this, we want to try that. And it's too many people in medicine who have God syndrome that that's their first thought, is they want to try it on a human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
because that's where it's all going.
I do see practical benefits to this. I can see a future for this. I could see this maybe prolonging the life of humans, bringing
Well,
a
look at Phil. This is all grown out of sort of bioengineering animals and plants and things for our food sources, whether it's cows or pigs or chickens or, I mean, we've done all of this stuff. You know, you've got, I mean, watermelons that don't have seeds, and you've got, you know, I mean, you name it, whether it's a plant, a fruit, or a animal, we've been able to modify them to a large extent. You know, I these direwolf things. I don't know what else they modified them. So, I mean, we don't know that they can produce, right? I'm not sure. I don't know what they did.
I think in the near future, we're going to be using some of this technology for farming.
I agree.
Because this actually could even intersect with the tariffs. It seems like we're bringing everything home. We may be actually in a situation where certain foods, we will not have access to them because of the tariffs. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking seafood.
Right.
We cannot fish enough fish in our water boundaries. No. It would require us to do two things. It would require our fishermen to go outside those water boundaries into international waters to increase the variety of what we're eating and to just get more seafood in general. And we would have to start relying on more and more seafood pens. We would have to have them in not only our boundaries but in international waters. There are certain fish, they're not going to live too long unless you keep them in their native waters. I could see this technology in some way where they could modify the DNA of where maybe a fish that could only survive in Norway or in the Antarctic or something can live in tropical waters, but has twice the meat or something like that.
Yeah. Yep. So there could be good and positive for this, but it's a slippery slope.
I agree. Do you think they will actually do what they claimed within the next 5 years? Actually like create an extinct animal, like what they're claiming?
I don't know. I mean, I'm going to pay attention to this. You notice how the direwolf thing is that, let's talk about marketing here for a second. They've shown you cute little baby dire wolves. They're cute. They've played they name them after Game of Thrones. They're playing to the whole, this is cool. Just like I think if they start creating T-Rex, they're gonna, somehow play it to cartoons or something. I don't know. Do I think that they're gonna be able to? So I would think that you could bring back, say, like the dodo bird or something that went extinct.
Yeah, why do they always pick apex predators first?
I don't know, especially since direwolf, I think, didn't I read somewhere it went extinct like 40,000 years ago? I mean, the dodo bird only went extinct like 100 years ago or something. You know what I mean? Like,
but it ain't gonna kill nobody.
Well, I don't know. I've never seen a dodo bird, so I'm not sure, but you wouldn't think so. I don't know. Right.
Yeah, they say that the wolf would be called what's called a keystone predator. So
yeah.
Anywhere
similar to like a mountain lion or a lion in Africa or a tiger. I mean, those are all, there's no predators of them other than man.
Right. But the other part of it is that no matter where you put them, they significantly change everything.
Yep. Yeah, because they're going to eat the food supply. So if you introduced dire wolves as an example in a gray wolf habitat, at some point gray wolves will be extinct.
Right.
I mean, that's what's going to happen.
And the elk will, if they don't go extinct, they will definitely go down in population, and then they're not grazing the grass.
That's right.
So it changes everything.
Everything. Yep. Yeah. So there's an interesting theory that things that go extinct are meant to go extinct. There's a cyclical process involved in this. And, we always talk about, particularly, I hate to say it out this, but environmentalists oftentimes talk about threatened species and things that are being pushed to the edge of extinction and stuff. My question, I'll leave this open-ended for the podcast, is that necessarily a bad thing?
Mike, is there anything else you want to say about the dire wolves?
No, I want to watch them. I want to see how big they get.
Because I just want to briefly state two things about travel. Germany has advised their citizens that they may be detained at U.S. borders. And here on our border between Washington and Canada, they've sent out warnings saying that they'll look through your phone at the border now to Canada. So if you got something on your phone, it's supposed to be on there.
I also add, when you call the Mexican consulates in the United States, there's a pre-recorded message on their call waiting, so telling their citizens that if to please report to the embassy or the consulate as soon as possible if you are at all threatened or there's a incident or anything that you feel like you are being mistreated in the United States. So there are definitely countries out there that are, I'll say, warning their citizens about some unrest in the United States.
Mike, I had it on my list to talk about Microsoft being the #1 capitalized country in the world. And I ended up not even bringing it up because of some of the other stuff in the news. That was like big news when it popped up. But so much stuff has happened in the last week, and that's been happening every week.
Every week.
It seems like there's a lot of news. And if it's an ongoing story, it seems as though I can't just lock down on a story because hours later, the story will change.
Yeah, for sure.
So keeping up with the news has been fun for me. That wasn't a complaint.
No.
I see why news people are entertained by their job so much.
Yep. And you know what? Secretly, I bet you every newscaster and every news person out there, they've got to love the Trump administration. I mean,
they say it.
Yeah.
I remember the liberal news started blaming themselves the first time he was elected, saying that we gave him air because he was so interesting to us. He was easy news every single day.
Yep.
And that's the truth. He may not have ever made it to his first presidency without being in the news so much. And then they said that was their mistake, but they doubled down on it this time. They gave him even more coverage.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, that's all about the news.
Because didn't he spend like less than $500 million, like $250 million or something like that?
He doesn't need to spend any money because whenever he wants to get on TV, I mean, he's at the top of the story every morning, every day.
But I'm talking about the last 2 years.
Yeah.
He's been at the top story.
That's how he got elected.
All right, Mike, that's our hour. We got to get out of here.
Amazing.
Anything on your schedule you want to bring up or talk about or anything like that?
Not yet. We're in the middle of no, we're not in the middle of April yet. There's a bunch of stuff coming up. We're going to talk about it, but we got some time, so we don't have to do it today.
All right, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully we'll see you here or on a trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.